Supporting faculty across their career development is particularly important when it comes to mentoring. And faculty, of course, at different stages in their lives as professors have different pressing demands and different concerns and different expectations. So a brand new faculty member, may have very little experience in mentoring students and may need guidance and supervision and support and learning how to do that. They also happen to be in a phase of their career where they are pressed to get writing done and learn how to be a teacher, and so they may feel overwhelmed with all the expectations they have. At the same time, those junior faculty can be some of the most exciting for students to engage because they're fresh out of graduate school. They are excited to be in the professorial role, and students are naturally drawn to somebody not too far removed from them as a teacher and a professor.
As faculty move across their career, I think it's really important that we should understand how we kind of meet their needs in the mentorship process. I'm in my own personal work, I've spent more of my time actually focusing on how we actually help prepare future faculty for mentorship, so working with graduate students or focusing on early career academics, so, people who are in their first 3 to 5 years of appointment usually. And in those contexts, I think most of what I've been doing is actually making sure that they understand kind of just, different ways of thinking about mentorship, the idea that there are, for example, different approaches that can be taken. So you could have 5 students that you're mentoring and actually have a very different mentoring relationship with each of those 5 students depending on their actual given needs, is something that a lot of doctoral students in early career academics are uncertain about. Often, some of the literature talks about the fact that early career faculty tend to supervise grad students or supervise undergraduate students or mentor students as they were mentored, so they kind of take a particular kind of bent on it, or if they had a bad experience in that context, kind of almost do the opposite of their what they experienced. So helping future faculty and early career faculty understand that there are these kind of different ways of thinking about mentorship is incredibly important.
They have to understand the culture of mentoring within that institution. They have to understand what the projects might look like, what this mentoring means, and what their expectations as a faculty are. And maybe that involves shadowing senior faculty, working with them as co-advisors on a project. That's partly what we're getting at, that maybe it would help a new faculty member if they are in a co-mentoring team with an older faculty member.
We have many, many programs in professional development of future faculty, mentors. In the context of teaching and learning, we have not explicit models of professional development in mentoring research. Therein lies a broad discrepancy and variation in the kinds of experiences that undergraduates could have. In research, some of them are terrific, but for the most part, I would dare to say that faculty have learned to do this by instinct. And so our goal is to start by interrogating what we might think of as the dimensions of personal identity as a mentor and what that development can look like. And in relation to those dimensions that we identify and hopefully characterize, develop ways in which we can explicitly and purposefully develop professional development programs and projects, initiatives, guidelines for helping to create better research mentors for future faculty.
The challenge of faculty at career stages is that that sort of intersects with life stages too, right? And so we often have junior faculty who are coming in who are very eager to get involved in many, many things, sometimes too many things. And so part of it's about helping, I think, newer faculty structure their time and narrow a focus or set out a plan for the first 8 years or the first 10 years and not help them see that they don't have to do everything within the first 2 years that they're at an institution. And before that, I think there are ways that in our hiring processes we can help frame those kinds of conversations for our prospective faculty, whether that's by highlighting in job ads the particular kinds of experiences that we're interested in, or the ways that our institutions value particular ideals. And one of those experiences may be undergraduate research mentoring. I think in mid-career faculty, I think they get pulled in multiple different directions. Many, it's sort of family concerns, children who are through school who are now doing 1,001 things after their classes end, and so they're pulled in family directions. But they're also pulled administratively on departments, and they start to become department chairs and program directors. They take on chairing of major committees. They're seeking other opportunities to do that. And I think for many of those faculty in the mid-career ranks, if they have never done undergraduate research and mentored undergraduate research students in these particular experiences, they're probably pretty reluctant to do that. And so are there programs that we can develop specifically devoted to those mid-career faculty to help them think about ways that this could advance their own kinds of teaching, their own thinking, moving them into different directions for scholarship, so maybe get involved in something like the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. And I think for senior faculty, I think the conversation may be about legacy, about working with students, about what's your biggest point of pride in a 30-year career that you've had at the college. We have a faculty member, for example, who is very proud that he's placed 17 students into PhD programs in his discipline over a 30-some-year career. And that's wonderful, and he does a terrific job in mentoring those students. And how do we elevate that and really celebrate what that person and so many like him are bringing to these campuses, so that really they're serving as models for each other, and that the institution values that as they've moved through a 30 or 35 or 40-year career, really values the kind of mentoring that they've done for students over the decades.
One thing that in arts and humanities could improve undergraduate research mentoring is if faculty themselves would start viewing research as more valuable, and if we didn't have that in our educational background, simply take some courses on research and, start doing it. And also people that are in performing arts and visual arts also should understand that it's not anymore I can play the recital, it's something new, bring new constellation of instruments together, do the research that is behind some visual constellation at the visual arts exhibition and present that. No, it's not anymore enough, just do it as we did it probably even 10 years ago. So I think re-educating faculty in arts and humanities and helping them to do more research would eventually, probably in 10, 15 years, bring more research into at the undergraduate level in these disciplines.
In the arts and humanities, it's really important to think about undergraduate research in such a way that you sort of start with the fact that it is different from mentoring undergraduate research in the sciences. So we don't have a collaborative model of lab work in my discipline of literary scholarship. It's a very solitary endeavor. That's how we were all trained, that you go off and you spend time in the archives by yourself, you sit and think by yourself, you might talk to each other, other grad students or other faculty about your ideas, but they're really your ideas. And I think the first thing really to keep in mind is that it's okay not to try to replicate what your friends and colleagues across the campus in the sciences are doing. That it's okay to come up with your own model of what undergraduate research and undergraduate research mentoring looks like in arts or humanities disciplines. It's going to be different. It can be different. It's just as valid, I guess, is one way to put that, as what's happening in other disciplines across the campus. And I think that that's important to keep in mind, that I tend to think that undergraduate research and mentoring in undergraduate research are different across the disciplines at a certain level. I think there are some sort of key competencies or characteristics, but it has to adapt to the discipline's tradition, and all the particular pieces of that.
Later on, professors farther down the professorial spectrum later in their careers may have different motivations and reasons for mentoring. They've got more experience, they're more accomplished. They may also really benefit from the sense of giving back and guiding the next generation, and they may be more aware of just how important that is for them to feel very generative at a stage later in their career. They may be a bit farther removed from their discipline and from graduate school. And so, interestingly, they may rely on students for a synergy and an excitement and a re-engagement with their own discipline. So we want to think during this seminar about how faculty across the spectrum both execute mentoring effectively and then also benefit as faculty from mentoring.
I think as faculty go on, that they need to learn, just as they do in teaching in any way, about new methodologies, new approaches, have opportunities to bounce off of others, new ideas for their student projects and for their own projects. So that kind of flexibility across the career cycle.
As people move through their career process, most of my work has been actually helping them understand that they actually do have tremendous knowledge about mentoring, even if they don't know the language about how to talk about mentoring effectively. So trying to actually pull out through their own lived experience kind of examples of, when you did this with that student, you were actually being, you were quite aware of the situation and you were actually able to empower the student effectively in this way. Kind of helps faculty kind of understand and be able to put language to what they are doing and why they're doing it.
I think we have to be mindful of the other tensions that faculty are facing down, and not only the tensions, but also the desires. What do people want to get out of their careers? So in some respects, it's highly individualized, although I think there will be themes that you'd see as people progress through their career. I think the best thing we can do is establish an ongoing dialogue as far as what people want out of their career, where they are, what are the tensions, not only what are their career tensions, but what are their life tensions, and realize that it's a fluid endeavor, right? That there's times when people will mentor more and times when people will mentor less. Times when people are going to try new techniques or new lines of research and be supportive of that as best we can. I also think that it's times when we want to connect people across career stages. I think there's great value in co-mentoring models. I think there's great value in peer mentoring. And that might be a new faculty member who's coming in who's never done the mentoring of undergraduate research, or it might be somebody who's later in their career who has stepped away to take on maybe an administrative role and is now returning to their more of a traditional faculty life and has to reestablish a mentoring repertoire with students. I think that providing support for mentor development grants, for example, which is a new program we've had at Elon now for a year, can be a really valuable tool as long as we leave it flexible enough to address individual concerns, needs, and desires as it relates to a very large practice. And a willingness, I think a central office is important so that when people, so that people can come to a central spot for resources, but also in a way to get connected with other people who might be who have either similar concerns or might have different concerns that they can interact with and learn from each other.